It was a cold, quiet evening when Mark was driving home after another long day. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sat in the back seat, her little hands pressed against the window, watching the world pass by. Mark had been a single father for almost 2 years now. His wife, Emily, had tragically passed away in a car accident, leaving a void in their lives that no one seemed able to fill. Lily, still too young to fully understand, missed her mom every day, and Mark, still mourning the love of his life, had done his best to hold their small family together. As they were driving down a familiar road, the peaceful night shattered. When Mark saw headlights in the distance, swerving dangerously, his heart skipped a beat as the car lost control, crashing into the trees by the side of the road. Without thinking, Mark slammed the brakes and pulled over to the shoulder. His breath hitched in his throat as he grabbed his phone, dialing emergency services. But before he could speak, he heard a soft cry for help. He rushed out of the car, his instincts taking over. He reached the wreckage to find a woman trapped, her face bloodied, and her body pinned inside the car. Mark didn't hesitate for a second. With all his strength, he pried the door open and pulled her out, his heart racing with adrenaline. He managed to get her to the side of the road, just as sirens could be heard approaching. The woman, barely conscious, gasped for air. Thank you. I thought I was going to die. Her voice trembled, barely audible. Mark, still shaken, tried to comfort her, telling her everything would be okay. Though his hands were shaking from the shock, as the ambulance arrived and paramedics took over, Mark tried to calm himself. But then, something strange happened. The woman, in between breaths, whispered, I think you might know me. I'm Emily's sister. The words hit Mark like a punch to the gut. His mind raced as memories of his late wife flooded back. Her warmth, her laughter, the way she'd always spoken so fondly of her family, especially her sister, whom Mark had never met. It was as though the world had stopped for a moment, everything freezing around him as the realization set in. Lily, who had been sitting quietly in the car, watching everything unfold, suddenly piped up, her small voice carrying a touch of innocence and confusion. Is she... Is she my mom's sister, Daddy? Mark's throat tightened, unable to speak for a few seconds. His emotions were a whirlwind. The grief he'd been carrying for so long, the loneliness, the confusion about life without Emily, all collided in that one fragile moment. The woman, now being helped into the ambulance, gave him a small, weak smile. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. My name's Rachel. The ambulance sped off, leaving Mark standing on the side of the road, stunned. He hadn't expected something like this to happen. He hadn't been ready to face the possibility of Emily's family coming back into his life. Not so soon. Not in this way. But here he was, with a woman who had been part of the family he had once known, now lying in a hospital bed, fighting for her life. Over the next few weeks, Mark visited Rachel in the hospital. Slowly, they began to talk, sharing stories about Emily, their memories of her, and the way she had brought joy into everyone's life. Rachel, who had been estranged from the family for years, opened up to Mark, explaining how she had been distant and full of regret for not being there when Emily passed. It was clear that Rachel, like Mark, was mourning the loss of someone who had meant everything to both of them. During this time, Mark began to see a new kind of healing taking place. Lily, who had been so withdrawn, began to ask about her Aunt Rachel. She would visit the hospital with Mark, and little by little, Rachel's presence seemed to fill the hole left by Emily. It wasn't a replacement, but it was a reminder that love could come in many forms, even in unexpected situations. One evening, after Rachel had been released from the hospital, Mark invited her over to his house for dinner. As they sat around the table, eating, laughing, and sharing stories, Mark realized something. He had been so afraid of moving on from Emily, so scared of letting someone else into their lives. But what he had discovered was that love didn't die with the person it transformed, and sometimes, love came back in the most surprising ways, bringing healing and connection where it was least expected. Mark smiled as he watched Lily and Rachel bond over stories of Emily. He realized that the family they had lost was not gone forever, it had just evolved. And in that moment, he knew that whatever the future held, they would be okay. Rachel had become a part of their world, not to replace Emily, but to help them find a way forward. Together, in life, sometimes the most unexpected encounters can lead to the greatest healing. Mark had thought his heart was broken beyond repair, but what he learned was that love had a way of finding its way back, no matter how lost it seemed. And that was the message he wanted to pass on to his daughter, to himself, and to anyone who might be listening. That love is never really gone. It just takes on new forms, showing up when you least expect it, helping you heal in ways you never imagined possible.